afternoon, and welcome to today's segment of Better Know a Candidate. So strap on your thinking cap because we're going to fill it.
What is it you said? Better know your candidate. I put
Better know a candidate. Yes,
I put candidate spotlight.
That's good enough.
Okay.
Whatever works. I mean, it's catch as catch can. We're coming up on the primary, but some folks have been good enough not to have a primary, and this young lady between the two of us right now has had that opportunity. This is Dr. Cindy Banyai from Fort
Myers.
Yeah. I just said that so you could correct me.
Very different. Very different.
Right.
Two different. Yeah, that's on the other side of the state.
Congressional
there,
District
Gary.
19.
That's right.
Okay, that's much more specific. I don't know anything about those districts.
Okay. Well, I can tell you one thing. It's one of those ones that got gerrymandered the heck out of it and got changed around a bit. And her opponent, the current incumbent in that area, is a very interesting person. Let's put
That's
this
one way to put it
to Byron Donald. He is okay with the gerrymandering, even though it actually removed two districts that helped elect two people of color and two very important people in our state, as a matter of fact. The wonderful Al Lawson, who's far too tall for me, and also Val Demings, who hopefully will be getting on the show pretty soon. How badly was your district changed when they went ahead and worked on that paper?
So the biggest districts in that were changed, the biggest things that were changed in my district in 19, just for reference, goes Boca Grande all the way down to Marco Island, includes Naples and Fort Myers. It didn't ultimately change a whole lot, except for my opponent, Byron Donald's new house is now looped into the district.
Oh, how nice.
Oh yeah, very convenient for that.
Does it come with landscaping?
Came with a little loop at the end, but otherwise the Ron DeSantis map was really similar to the way that 19 had been before, and the map that had passed the Florida Senate was actually really appalling because it actually cut out half of Fort Myers and another area called Lehigh Acres, both where there's a very large Black population, very large Hispanic population in those areas, and the line was literally down the train track, which was the segregation line in Fort Myers.
Yeah, that's the thing about Florida. You have train tracks, and they are actually racial boundaries.
Yeah,
especially in places like Coconut Grove and that kind of area on the other side of the state, things of that sort. So
there's a train track like right there.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering how
it doesn't work that way.
Congressman Donald's actually got in
no
the first
racial
place.
boundary between the train tracks and Ybor.
Yeah, well, in Fort Myers, the train track is so symbolic that in the segregation era, people had to be on the other side of the train track before sunset. And the train station that was coming into Fort Myers was never actually formally desegregated right up until it closed in 1974.
You know, I got to tell you guys, switching gears from the other side of the tracks here. We were talking about how districts are like redone and everything like that. I gotta tell you, you can really notice the difference in Florida, pre DeSantis, post DeSantis. I don't even want to point to anything specific, maybe all the homeless people out here in Ybor, but I just a general vibe, we just kind of people in general just kind of feel defeated, I think, and just kind of are falling for this system and everything. We got to change this because there's going to be no marijuana reform while DeSantis is in power.
That's true.
See, here's my idea. Let's just get rid of congressional districts altogether. Well, actually have them there. But when you get to the ballot box, you can check off which districts you want to vote for. So you don't have to vote in just your area because they don't really represent their own constituents anyway. Yeah. So let's say, I want to vote on 19. I want to vote on 12. I definitely want to get to, voting on 1 and going on from there. And that would be a really, really open primary.
I would like to see some of the reforms that were put forth in the John Lewis Elections Act, and that is to make the districts more competitive, because that will eliminate gerrymandering in places like my district. What we have in Florida is they're stacking districts. So we have extremely Democratic districts, we have extremely Republican districts, and very few districts in between. If we had a more equitable way to split those up, then people would have more of a choice. And voting in local elections, voting in congressional elections would feel like it matters.
Well, our legislature is the one who sets up the state legislature sets up the federal congressional districts. I guess that's supposed to be like one degree of separation, so they're not actually gerrymandering their own districts. But then again, they do that for the state districts anyway. So,
well, I mean, they gerrymandered all of them. They get, and this happens with every organization, every party that's in power, gerrymanders in their favor. So that's why having a federal law that says you have to make the districts as equitable as possible is a good idea. And then states have to comply to that. They can draw the lines wherever they want, but they have to make them equitable and fair districts.
all right, well, this is where it's leading up. I tell the folks exactly where 19 is now, so we'll know who out there can actually vote for you and who can't. So the guys know whether to listen really, really closely, or to listen, to something in the archive in your brain. But definitely send money to your campaign anyway.
Definitely send money. I'm big into the green. So we are Southwest Florida. So we do Cape Coral, Lehigh, Sanibel, Fort Myers Beach, Fort Myers, Estero, where Florida Gulf Coast University is, Bonita Springs, and coastal Naples and Collier.
So Bonita Springs is where the white folks come in.
Almost all of it is where the white folks come in, because they've cut most of the black folks out of the district.
But you don't go as high as Punta Gorda, though. So
no, right up to the edge of Charlotte County.
So what is the makeup of your district as far as Republican, Democrat, NPA, or Hispanic, Black, White?
So we have a less than average amount of folks who are Black in the community. In the district itself, we have about 35 to 40% people who identify, as Latino of some kind. But otherwise, we're into the 90% of folks who are white. So it's very white, and it's also very Republican. So Democrats we're at about 35% right now. And we have more NPAs than Democrats and more Republicans overall. It's very much stacked in the favor of Republicans.
Well, I'll give you a boost right now and let everybody know that actually, I'm going to keep that a secret until the end. But go ahead and tell us about yourself and why you feel that you'd be the best person for that district.
So, my name is Dr. Cindy Banyai. I am the Democratic nominee, and that's a big deal. I was the 2020 nominee, and I won that nomination because I am a regular person. I am a mom and small business owner fighting for our water, our health, and our community, and I'm working to create a Southwest Florida where the sun shines on everyone. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about making sure that everybody has the fair shake, that we are designing a government that makes it a priority that everybody has the same chance to work hard and have a good quality of life. So
very cool. And I just want to point out that you can't really tell from the recording, but you've had a little bit of an injury, and you've traveled all the way over here to Ybor City to talk to two schlubs about marijuana.
Yes. You want me to tell you about that? That's a good story, actually.
Yeah, what happened?
So I have my leg is broken in 3 places, and I had
no.
reconstructive surgery on my ankle because over Memorial Day we were enjoying the beautiful beaches with some friends and family, and we were about to leave, and the tide started to pull out, and my youngest daughter, who's 5 years old, started to get pulled under the boat by the tide, and I jumped over the side of the boat.
You saved your daughter.
I saved my daughter and my friend's daughter, pulled them both to shore, and immediately knew that I broke my leg. So
that's incredible. That's like a really cool story. So I want to share with you some information that I'm privy to about medicine, that medical marijuana is actually really good for pain.
Yeah, and I'll actually tell you something about that. I was thinking a heck of a lot about that because they prescribed me opioids for this, and I don't do a lot of stuff like that, and so I was in a significant amount of pain. I was taking those opioids, and in the early days I was such a mess it didn't matter. But I actually ended up going through withdrawals at one
Really?
point. Yes, it was such a shock to me because, again, here I'm Pollyanna. The doctor told me to take this medicine to help me with the pain, and it was a case where it's like early on I had taken a lot, and then about a week later I had taken another opioid pill because the pain started to come back, and I took that one, and then the next day I was in full DTs, chills and all that kind of stuff. And I couldn't believe it. And it's really scary that we are not having a better and a more robust discussion about the types of pain medications that people can have. So, they do not get addicted to opioids and they do not go through withdrawals every time that they have an injury.
Well, let's talk about that right now.
Let's talk about that.
Your district was actually one of the ground zeros in Florida for the opioid epidemic.
Absolutely, it was. That was right in Lehigh. They were pill mills more than we can count. And I actually spent some time with a recovery community organization there, so helping people who have addiction and getting back into recovery and the multiple paths to recovery. And it's devastating to our community, to families. And I just really think it's important that we have other types of therapeutic medicines that can help people when they're in pain. So the doctors aren't just handing out scripts, and definitely getting rid of the pill mills and the people who are just handing them out, knowing that these folks are, having addiction problems.
And of course, the side effects of using cannabis for pain, you may sleep in, or you may lose some sleep running to the refrigerator to see how much hummus is left. But you won't have withdrawal symptoms. No, not the physical withdrawal that you get from opioids, which is great.
How long has Florida had medical marijuana now? We've been a medical marijuana state since
January 17th of 2017 was when it first got
2017. We've had medical marijuana available, right? So is there any type of information out there about how it's affected the opioid crisis here in Florida? Has that come out at all?
Not a lot. One of our directors of Normal, Paul Armentano, has written a couple of papers on it, and there's been information going back to the 1880s talking about how to use cannabis for what they called opioid poisoning at the time.
Really?
So the research goes that far back, and it does verify that it does work as a substitute it brings the opioid poisoning into detail so that you can actually get through it and get off the opioids, which is so important. They also used that at that point in time for remediation of alcoholism as well as an adjunct therapy.
Well, I'd be interested to see how medical marijuana has impacted the opioid crisis in the state, and maybe if Big Cannabis is in charge of a medical marijuana system, how that's impeded any type of a drawback between the opioid crisis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm saying using my words correctly. The thing about podcasting, you got to say words right.
Yeah,
that's
right.
It's so hard for me.
You can't slur your words.
What I do know is
That's why I
that
drink coffee.
especially through the COVID epidemic or the COVID pandemic, we actually saw an uptick overall in opioid use, and an uptick in deaths related to overdose. We also have the fentanyl components that are coming in that are making opioid use so much more dangerous. People don't even realize that they're that they are taking such a powerful drug because it's mixed in when they're using street drugs, and they die. The organization I work with was distributing Narcan for that purpose, right? So I don't know if there's going to be a great correlation in the state of Florida between the legalization of medical marijuana and opioids because of the circumstance. But what I can tell you from my personal experience and from what I know from data as well is that doctors aren't readily prescribing medical marijuana in the same way that they're prescribing other pharmaceuticals. Like I said, this my leg might have been a case where that could have been an option or something that my doctor talked to me about, but that wasn't what happened.
Didn't have to, because doctors have to be registered to recommend in the state. So if every doctor had that available, if you broke your leg, Cindy, you should smoke a blunt.
Now, this is something that's going to be important to our readers. When you go to DC, see how I got what that is in a positive. When you go to DC, you will find that the pro cannabis movement is actually bipartisan, both in the House
Yeah.
and the Senate.
Yep.
Yeah.
We actually had on here not too long ago Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who's made an incredible bill from the Republican side that's getting bipartisan support, and it may actually get through the House, but it may be blocked in the Senate again because of leadership issues.
Mhm.
But what things will you be bringing to DC to get us farther into getting those kind of things passed?
Well, my personal stance and my policy stance is that I believe in full decriminalization. I believe in expungement of possession records going back, and I think that will have the dual effect of helping our legal system, judicial system, criminal justice system get on a good path, and it will stop putting people who are simply enjoying cannabis and all the related products to it, keep them out of the judicial system. It will help our communities overall. I also want to make sure that declassifying it as a Schedule 3 drug, and making sure that the banking systems can help support the industries that are behind it. So it's making those federal changes, because the states now are in lots of different positions with recreational and medicinal cannabis, but there are still issues with how those businesses can be funded. So making sure that the businesses, and not just a handful of select businesses, by the way, and I know that you were alluding to that with the big cannabis comment, but that there are people who can have homegrown, there are small business operators, because I'm a big small business proponent, can get into the industry without major barriers from the federal level.
Well, Cindy, thank you so much for joining us today. So we've reached where we at? We're at like the 16-minute mark.
Exactly.
And time on these interviews is very important. So I want to
You
go
can get
ahead.
17, the guy with the axe comes around swinging. So it's,
there's literally that thing, that hook will come and pull Gary off. But go ahead, take
we
a
borrowed
moment.
it from the Apollo Theater. Yeah, absolutely.
Take a moment to look into the camera there and tell people who you are, any last words you want to put out, and where they can find you, how they can support you.
Absolutely. So I gave you the typical spiel, but I am somebody who's spent their entire life working for the people, making sure that our communities are strong. I'm an instructor in American government and political science at a university, and I have the knowledge and skills to go to Washington, D.C. to make the policy that we need to help people in this community, in our state, and in the country. So I'm Dr. Cindy Banyai. I'm running for U.S. House of Representatives, Florida 19 in Southwest Florida. I can take and would love to have your assistance from all over the state and the country, because I am a 100% grassroots candidate. I do not take corporate dollars. I have no dark money in my pockets. It's really just me and the people and our community coming together behind me. So I would love to have your support. If you want to do some virtual volunteering, we do that as well. CindyBanyai.com. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and just about everywhere else.
Now, as a personal aside, I am just thrilled to see that somebody who is actually a professor, a PhD in political science, actually going to DC, because we actually have people like Herschel Walker
More people
and
in DC,
Dr.
that's
Oz,
what a crazy
who are
concept.
running for office in the Senate, whose major political acumen comes from the back of a cereal box somewhere, and I don't think that cereal was any good anymore. I think it passed its expiration date.
Right.
And
I tell people that I'm running for Congress because so many people, the dumbest people I knew were in charge, and I just couldn't take it anymore.
And on that note, thanks for joining us,
Absolutely.
Cindy. Appreciate you.